When he is not writing his columns for Vanity Fair and The Nation, Christopher Hitchens is still keeping his eye on world events. In fact, he has tried to be on the scene at some of the most notorious revolutions of the last 5 years. He's put those observations into a new book, For the Sake of Argument, which is a collection of his essays, criticisms, and reporting. It covers everything from the end of Reaganism and Bushism to the revolutions in Yugoslavia and the war in Bosnia. And I'm pleased to have him here. Welcome.
Thank you, Sean.
Let me talk first. I want to talk about Bosnia and how you feel about that, and you've been there. Tell me, let me just show the picture up here. This is, where was this taken?
That's taken on my wedding night by Annie Leibovitz, who was in the restaurant, and it gives...
Yeah. This is your wedding night?
It gives the appropriately degenerate impression, I suppose.
This is your wedding night, though?
Yeah. Sometimes I think it's the hedgehog caught in the headlamps and so on.
And this picture is what?
That's me with an unexploded chemical bomb in Halabja, the town in Iraqi Kurdistan, where Saddam massacred the entire population in one go.
Okay. First, Bill Clinton. You were at Oxford at the same time he was there as a Rhodes Scholar.
But I claim not to have known him.
You claimed? You didn't know him?
No, I didn't know him. But I knew that group of brave American students who were against the war, and
what was his reputation in Oxford?
As sort of charmer. And a nice guy, and so on. Perhaps even then, manifesting the dreadful need to be loved that he still seems to have.
The dreadful need.
Well, it's dreadful in a politician, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think they all have it.
The need for approval and the need to be liked is a terrific vice.
Yeah, but they all have it, don't they? I mean, like most entertainers have it. Most people who go into theater have it.
Some don't have it, I would say. Would you say that Eisenhower had it as abjectly as Clinton does?
No, that's be true. Yeah. Or say Robert Kennedy, and I don't know. I mean, how you measure, but it seemed to me part of that is a kind of
it is a professional. It's a professional deformation of politicians, but it's one that still needs watching.
How do you think he's doing?
Very badly. I've disliked him ever since I followed him through New Hampshire, and followed him through the campaign. Well, I think partly because of his combination of this rather weak-willed need to be approved of and to be liked, with a terrible unscrupulousness. In New Hampshire, what shocked me was that he, in order to prove that he was not soft on crime, I suppose would have been how he'd put it, or wouldn't be Willie Horton, he flew home specially to Arkansas to supervised the execution of a retarded, in fact a lobotomized black prisoner who would have met any ordinary criterion of
who'd been sentenced to death by the court.
But would have met any normal criterion
of
clemency. Wasn't fit to plead, didn't know that he was being executed even.
But it had gone through the process, I guess. He would argue.
Sure, yes. I mean, Clinton didn't fly back and just kill the guy.
No, I mean, but it had gone through, it had been appealed and appealed and appealed, the issues that caused you to differ with the courts.
I found there was an element of really cynical calculation, really cheap calculation.
You think he did it only because, you attribute that motive that he only did it because?
I think he only did it because
he wanted to satisfy.
He wanted to satisfy the people who
that he was hard on crime, tough on crime.
Set these sort of hurdles for politicians to clear. Yes, I'm okay on this issue. You can't attack me there.
So those are a couple of character things. What else discourage? What else don't you like about this presidency, of this president?
Well, I was watching your two previous guests, and I remember being very shocked when Clinton first came into office that he suddenly started to backpedal on things like college education for everyone down the road, voluntary service plans, many other good-sounding things he'd run on, saying that now he looked at the deficit, he had no idea how big it was. He'd only realized it when he was in power. Now that's pathetic, as you know, because the General Accounting Office had given him all the figures on that well before.
As Republicans were quick to point out.
Yeah. Now, but to say that and to expect to be believed and to make his excuse for crumbling on a whole number of points would seem to be a very bad sign.
Now, what do you...
And this package that everyone keeps talking about...
Economic plan.
...doesn't make no difference at all, as was made very clear, I think, particularly by Senator Rudman.
By the brilliant questioning by me, or?
I thought you were listed. I thought you brought out the best in him. Make that beast in him.
Let me just stay with Clinton then. What about foreign policy? You have covered wars and you've been to Bosnia, and I mean, I saw you in New York, and you brought someone there, or there was someone there who stood up to talk about.
A woman from Sarajevo, yes.
Yes.
Who I liked particularly. I'll get back to Clinton in a second. Okay. She works actually at the Bosnian mission in New York. She's from Sarajevo. Right. And if you ask her...
The Bosnian mission to the UN.
To the UN. Right. If you ask her, well, are you a Muslim, Catholic, or an Orthodox Bosnian? She refuses to reply. She says, that's considered in Sarajevo a very rude question. I'm a Bosnian. The whole point about Bosnia is that it doesn't call for a state based entirely on the allegiance to one religion, as all the other post-communist republics in the Balkans do. That's why I think the United States should be interested in defending it. It's the only one
Well, what would you like to see
for a multi-ethnic, multicultural democracy?
What would you like for the United States? What do you think the president should have done that he has not done? I mean, is it simply a matter of arming the Bosnians, or should he have done more?
Well, I think it would be a matter first of saying, look, we identify the United States and its values with the values of Bosnia. We say they stand for democracy and multi-ethnicity, unlike all the others. So just make a declaration. We recognize our own principles in that. That would be a start. That we don't think that a member state of the United Nations can be forcibly dismembered, as is now happening. There's a sort of Hitler-Stalin pact between Serbia and Croatia.
Pushed out of its towns and being subject to ethnic cleansing.
And not just moved around, but probably being lined up for killing, too.
And raping.
And yes, that it has the right of self-defense, and that we would aid it to acquire those sinews of defense.
Okay, so the president articulates all these values and all these concerns. So then what do you want him to do?
Well, you see, you can't. Let's go back to the Clinton position here. You can't run against Bush saying, I think Bosnia is a moral issue, an imperative. Here is the third European minority this century being rounded up for slaughter. And this time we can see it happening, see the preparations. And then when you're elected, say, actually, it's not really moral. It's not like disagreeing on Title V of NAFTA. It's serious stuff, right?
It is. And
it's like promising things to the Haitian people.
I would assume that Christopher Hitchens has a hotter place in hell for his European friends.
Oh, you bet. Yes, certainly. And
because this president seemed to be willing to go to them and sent Christopher over there and saying, this is what we're prepared to do. And guess what happened?
No, I think particularly the performance of the British government was unbelievably shameful in this respect. But I mean, they are reverting, as most of the European powers are, to picking their own faction in the Balkans. That's exactly what led to the First World War. Everyone, the British are the protectors of the Serbs, so are the French to some extent, the Germans of the Croatians, the Austrians of the Slovenians. They all have clients. The Bosnians are the only ones who don't have a defender.
Because of what happened to the Kurds, and because of what Saddam Hussein has continued to do to the Kurds, did you support the Bush effort in the Persian Gulf War? And would you have supported pushing on to do whatever you could to get rid of Hussein?
Look, I thought that the United States...
Look is almost like...
Yes, yeah, right.
When you say look, a Brit says look.
Not in my George Bush, and I'm not...
I know you're not, but that's why I'm trying to get at your whatever contradictions there might be.
I was opposed to the Gulf War.
I know.
And it was the hardest war to oppose that I've had to oppose anyway, because there was a moral case to be made against Saddam Hussein, and there still is, and because I was very interested in the Kurds and in their survival. Let me put it this way, and I'm trying not to weasel. I think it's not by coincidence that the Kurds were some of the biggest losers in the war, that they were abandoned by the policy. The policy of Bush was a continuation of his policy of divide and rule in the region, of switching sides between Iran and Iraq in that war.
To keep a balance of power.
Which they'd done 3 or 4 times.
To keep a balance of power.
Keep them both, as Kissinger said, make sure they both lose, and then we can sell both of them weapons. The Bush, in other words, war was the outcome of his own policy, so I couldn't very well say I supported it. But I do very strongly believe that help should be given by everyone to the Iraqi democratic opposition and to the preservation of independent Kurdistan.
Let me talk a little bit about you. Why are you living in the United States rather than home of your birth?
Well, Dr. Samuel Johnson, who was a frightful old Tory blowhard in many ways, said, if a man, sir, if a man is tired of London, he's tired of life. And I found that wasn't true. You could be really fed up with London and still feel you had some moves left in you. I loved the United States. I'd loved ever since I came from...
What is it about...
Oxford sent me here on a scholarship, and I nearly stayed the very first time I came.
Oh, Oxford sent you here on
a scholarship in 1970, and I nearly stayed right then and there.
What is it about us that you loved?
Whoa, what's not to like?
Well, I know you love the Constitution is one thing you love. You love the sense of... I mean, some people say that you are a libertarian. I mean, that it's a real... There's a real gut instinct about freedom that sort of beats in your heart, notwithstanding, you weigh the heck over on the left in terms of any kind of American political spectrum.
Well, both of those things are true. Yes, I would say I was a libertarian as well as a socialist. And it's possible to be that in America, I believe, in a way it isn't in Britain. Yes, of course, it's true about the land of the free. It's even sometimes true about the home of the brave. And the founding documents make you proud to be English, because after all, there's this wonderful lapidary...
There's this thing called the Magna Carta.
Well, your founding documents, the wonderful lapidary English in which they're written.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I mean, you can feel at home here in a way that I don't think probably immigrants from any other country quite can. I don't want to claim any special privilege. I wrote a book attacking Anglophilia in the United States, so I'm trying to have it both ways. But and if you're a journalist and you're really interested in the modern world and in modern culture, the headquarters of all these things are
is
in
right
the
here in
States.
Washington, D.C.
Sure. Or in New York City.
But you believe Washington, don't you? I mean, you choose
I
to
live in Washington. I live in Washington, and I do a lot of commuting to New York and to Los Angeles, which are the other, if you like, cultural capitals of the modern world. And I can't believe my luck. I should be arrested. I have such a good time.
Why Washington, though? I mean, is it that this is the political heart of America, and therefore that's where you want to be because politics is what resonates most with you?
Someone has to do it, I think, and I feel that I myself don't believe that there's too much gridlock and too much partisanship here. I believe, to the contrary, what you have inside this famous Beltway is very much a one-party system.
Establishment party.
Yes, the party of permanent power. I mean, you couldn't have a better instance of that than the selection of David Gergen. A man who cut his teeth putting a good spin on Watergate.
Yes, it's true.
Grows to manhood putting a good spin on the Reagan budgets, which its authors now agree are the origins of all our woes in the economy, and is now picked by a man I regard as a moderate Republican president to be a moderate Republican spokesman, And then you think, and then everyone says, oh, it's so partisan.
But look, isn't America,
give me a break.
Come on, isn't America a great place? Guess who's chairman of the House Armed Services Committee? Ron Dellums. I mean, that says a lot to me. I like
That's wonderful. Yeah, they should have told him they were going to bomb Baghdad, don't you think?
They should have done what?
They should have told him they were going to bomb Baghdad. They left him out of the loop.
Well, they left a lot of people out of the loop.
Come on,
I mean, leaving people out of the loop was not a new phenomenon.
They left the Baghdad civilians out of the loop. They could have said, they could have said, clear the streets.
You think that was a bad idea?
Well,
to bomb Baghdad?
They say they only bombed the complex of the dreaded Iraqi secret police when it was late at night and the lights were out, so they'd only hit the machinery. Well, why not tell the civilians to take care? A lot of good Iraqis were killed for no reason in that raid.
I mean,
just for
six or eight, or I mean, this does not diminish whether it's 1 or 6 or 160.
A few dozen.
How many was it? The final figure in your judgment?
A few dozen, as far as I know. But good people who were dead who could still be alive. For the opinion polls, openly admitted that it's done to make President Clinton look good.
No, it wasn't openly admitted, Christopher.
Yes, it was openly admitted.
I haven't heard the president. I haven't seen the president stand up or anybody who was involved in it said, "Look, we did this to make the president look good." That's openly admitting it.
Yeah, but look, as you know, his tactic is, "I want a good press for getting a good press," and all the papers the next day had been briefed. They said, we wanted a chance to demonstrate resolve. The president was looking a bit flaky. True. So I think
do you think he had a choice on that? I mean,
well,
he had to do something. Your quarrel is with what he did and the fact that innocent civilians were killed.
I'll give you a Washington example. I think it's quite possible that they're correct in claiming that those Kuwaiti defendants were planning to do in Old George. But if the Kuwaiti evidence is so good, why not wait for the verdict in the Kuwaiti trial?
I got to get some other things going here. Is Orwell your hero?
Yes, in a word.
Why?
Orwell and Thomas Paine.
Why?
Well, because I thought he combined an attachment to what I consider the cause of the left, democratic socialism, with an absolutely ruthlessly self-critical style, which meant that he could never really lend himself to any party or gang.
Where is a working government in the world?
Also a great writer, very good, honest, clear, quite funny writer.
Where is the working government in the world that you like, that reflects what you think government ought to be?
Well, at the moment, I identify my own values most closely with the Republic of Bosnia-Herzegovina, which is being destroyed and its people destroyed before my eyes. Happy Bastille Day, by the way, I forgot to say.
That's right. That's right. It is. Today is July 4th.
And I think one has to fight for the upholding and maintenance of certain values wherever you are. And
for the sake of argument is Christopher Hitchens' book, a whole series of essays. He considers himself and likes best being an essayist and having an opportunity to talk about the world as he sees it. It's a pleasure to have him on the broadcast. Good to see you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us from Washington. Tomorrow night, back in New York. No, I'm sorry, back in San Diego on Thursday night, live from San Diego, and live from San Diego on Friday night, back in New York on Monday. Look forward to seeing you then.